Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm welcoming you all to yet another session which promises to be exciting, insightful, and of course, revealing as we get prepared for the New York session today. So, before we kickstart the session, let's confirm that we are good to go. So I would like to see some feedbacks in the comment section confirming that the audio and visuals are excellent at this point in time. So if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly without distortion, kindly type in hi in the comment section and let's get this party started. I would like to see some feedbacks, please. Screen and you can hear my voice clearly without. Okay, so what do we have here? All right, so I can see 6352. Good morning to you. Thank you. Good evening to you too. 5290. Good morning. 8024. Elsabeth. Good morning. Mdashik. Good morning to you. Thank you. 4454. Thank you very much. Hello, Haki88. Good morning to you. Glad to have you around this morning. 61334. I see your comments. Amelero 716. Thank you very, very much. I'm so glad and grateful to spend another moment with you guys today. So I think these are very positive feedbacks that we can continue with the live session, and it's on this note. I welcome you all to yet another promising session on the Xtrendspeed Live. My own name is Sheriff Daramola, and for the next 1 hour, I am going to be your host, where we shall be evaluating the financial market using technical parameters to guide our trading activities for today. So we normally use simple technical structures like key levels, trend lines, and of course chart patterns to explore recent movement and uncover key insights that can potentially shape our trading decision for the New York session today. And for those who are joining us for the first time, you are highly welcome on board. I'm so grateful and glad to have you guys around this morning. And what we simply do here every day is to come together as a community in anticipation of the New York session. And during this time, we review and manage our current positions, while we also aim to position ourselves strategically for the New York's trading session. So you are highly welcome on board. We do this every day, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time. And one thing I would like to mention for newcomers is that the more time you spend with us, the better you will become in digesting the information and eventually using it to guide to make your independent decision on your own account. So once again, I welcome you all. So now on this note, let's dive right into the business, and you know how we do it. The first thing we are going to be doing this morning is to check on the economic calendar. By now, we all know how the fundamental factors often manifest on the chart in technical patterns and price movement. And of course, by monitoring the economic calendar, we can easily identify potential correlations between key economic releases and of course specific technical patterns. And by doing this, we can gather enough knowledge of how to position ourselves in such a way that we can capture any potential trading opportunity prior, during, and even after the event. So with that being said, here let's dive right into the economic calendar. And for today, Wednesday, July 12th, we have the Consumer Price Index. This is one high impact event that everyone in the market has been looking forward to. This index is released by the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it is a measure of price movement by the comparison between the retail prices of a representative shopping basket of goods and services. The CPI is a key indicator to measure inflation and changes in purchasing trends, and generally speaking, a high reading is seen as positive for the US dollar, while a low reading is seen as negative. And you all know now that the Fed Reserve will be looking forward to what this data will be, as it has a major impact in determining if there's going to be a rate hike or not. You know, we are expecting the rate decision meeting, which will be coming up, I think, in 2 weeks from now. So it's a very, very impactful event that everyone in the market will be looking forward to. And from the previous data we have here, it's 0.1% as for the month on month, and consensus are projecting a 0.3%. That is like an hopeful expectation there. So we are going to be looking forward to what the actual data is going to be. Will it be just as expected, below expectations, or even beyond expectation? And of course, the anticipation of this event will definitely be reflected on the chart as price action. So with that being said, and with the information we have gathered here, let's dive right into the chart, where we shall be looking at things from a technical standpoint. So the first instrument on our watch list for today is, of course, the US All Spot. Now, on the US All Spot, we have quite a very interesting and profitable situation going on at this point in time. Now, if you remember, at the beginning of the week, we had a couple of losses on the US All Spot, where we had one of our buy positions went into stop loss, and one of our sell position also went into stop loss, making us start the week on a very negative note. But thank goodness, activities from the last 24 hours was quite promising, as we were able to recoup our losses and as well gain more yield, more profit on that single move. Now, during the live session yesterday, this was what we were anticipating, as we had two trend lines we said we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for the day. And one of the trend line is this bearish trend line. As you can see, we connected a series of lower highs to give us this trend line here. And of course, we had the series of higher lows identified here to give us this ascending trend line. And one more thing we observed here since the beginning of the week was the fact that sellers struggled around the $73 area to emphasize that buyers are gradually gaining momentum here by turning that zone into an accumulation phase. And one of the things we said we are going to be looking out for to buy the US All Spot was to see price action break out both of this descending trend line and of course the $73.20 level. And that was exactly what happened prior to the New York session. We saw the breakout happen, we saw retest of structure, and since then we saw how price action rose all the way to the upside. And in fact, if you had missed out on this opportunity, remember we had key levels like the $73.60 level where we had a buy stop order. We also had one at the $74 area to maximize this potential move to the upside. So in fact, you should be having a minimum of 3 positions running in profit on the US All Spot. So on this one now, let's see how many pips we have in total. So at this point, if you still have a buy position running right now, the first position will currently be running with 160 pips, while the second position here is running with 120 pips. That's a total of 280 pips. And then the third position is currently running with about 80 pips in profit, giving us a total or a minimum of 320 pips in profit. So for those who are being on standby to take advantage of this opportunity yesterday, well done to you guys for being on standby to have caught this move. Now, if you still have a buy position running at this point, you know how we do it. The next thing we want to be doing at this point in time is to secure the current buy position, as of course we don't want to lose out on whatever we had made so far this week. Now, the best thing we are going to be doing is to move all stop losses on all buy positions And of course, we want to be giving room for price action to breathe. So I'm suggesting that anywhere below the $74.50 area, and of course that area around below the $74.20 level, seems most appropriate to move all stop losses to. We want to secure position and at the same time give room for price action to breathe, hoping that price action will continue to the upside. So now with the situation we have now and a well secured position on the buy position we have running, what is going to be our next line of action for today? Well, it is quite a simple setup we have here. We have a beautiful ascending trend line, which is going to be our center of focus for today. So you know how we use our trend lines in this community. As long as price remains above the trend line, we have no other business than to continue to look out for buying opportunity in this particular market. It's only if price action breaks down the trend line can we start thinking of selling this instrument for today. So now with the situation we have here, price action remains above the trend line. Very good. So the next thing we are going to be doing is to zoom into the current structure, which as you can see, while trying to decipher what could be the next line of action today, I identified a range. As you can see, as soon as price got into that $75 level, a very strong psychological area, considering the round figure of that price, we begin to see bearish momentum begin from that level since the early hours of today. And in fact, this has transitioned into a range, giving us a flat channel to work with for today. And this further emphasizes the level of indecision in this market, and it's quite significant that we understand that the participants in the market are looking forward to the CPI data to decide what's the next direction price action is likely going to go. And one thing for sure we know in this community, whenever we have this kind of flat channel, we want to remain patient, waiting for market structure to mature to give us a signal of where to go. And one thing we normally look out for in this kind of structure is either a breakout retest of structure to give us an opportunity to buy, or the breakdown retest of structure to give us an opportunity to sell. Now, with the situation we have here, this range can transition to either a trend continuation or a reversal pattern. Now, let's talk about the potentials of buyers here at this particular point in time, considering the strong bullish momentum we have been witnessing here since the beginning of the week. Now, following the impulsive move that we saw here from that demand zone we identified yesterday, and price action trapped within a range, giving us a consolidation phase, this whole structure could transition into a trend continuation pattern, which will come in the form of a breakout retest of the resistant line to incite another wave of bullish momentum. So at this point in time, this is how we are going to be maximizing the potential of this bullish move. So we want to see price action break out of the $75 area to give us a signal that sellers have been taken out, and it is time for buyers to take on and push price further to the upside. Now, there is a caveat to this whole structure here. Normally, whenever we want to take structures like this, we want to see confirmations before joining. Something like a breakout happen first of all, then we scale down into our lower time frame to look out for signs that buyers are getting stronger before joining that move to the upside. However, since we are already profitable in this trade so far this week, we can actually leverage on the profit we had made so far this week to test waters around that $75 area. So I'm going to be advising for those who already have a bullish momentum, bullish position where you've been running profit on this one, have a buy stop order above the $75 area, and let's capture that bullish move. We might not see any room for a retest of structure to happen considering the strong bullish momentum here. However, for those who are yet to open a position on the US All Spot, that is, if you've not bought or sold at all for this week, and and this is going to be your first time buying the US All Spot, I will advise you to remain patient and wait for a breakout of structure to happen, then scale down into your lower time frame. It could be the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or even 15 minutes time frame to look out for retest of the $75 area. All we just want to be seeing at this juncture is signs that sellers are finding it difficult to drop below the $75 level, and this would reflect on the chart as continued buy pressure or a reversal pattern like double bottom structure to join the trend continuation to the upside. So this is how we are going to be buying at the US All Spot for today. That is, if price action breaks out of the $75 level. Now let's talk about the potentials that the sellers have at this juncture in the market. Now, if you look at the structure closely and considering the impulsive move that started around that $72.50 area at the beginning of the week, you would agree with me that a retracement phase could be considered at this juncture, especially after majority have taken advantage of price at a very cheap price. We could see a situation where profit-taking activities could happen, and of course this would reflect on the chart as a retracement of that bullish move. But this does not negate the idea that the outlook on this current market structure is still very, very bullish. So a retracement could occur if price action breaks down the support line of this flat range we identified here, which is situated at the $74.55 area, to incite a retracement to the downside. And if this happened, I'm not going to be jumping into this position, as I will wait and see how far this retracement phase is going to go before another wave of bullish momentum will happen. So if this retracement phase happens, that is, if price drops below the $74.55 level to the downside, I want to hold on and see how the market is going to be reacting with this beautiful confluence where the $74 level and of course the ascending trend line coincides. Now, if price gets into that structure, we want to see what happens, as whatever happens here will determine if we are going to be adding more sell position or getting ready to join another wave of bullish momentum. Now, let's look at what happens if price gets into that structure. What are the scenarios we are going to be looking out for? So if price action drops into the trend line and the $74 level, and we begin to see the resumption of buy pressure, then at this point we will consider getting ready to buy. So we want to be looking out for signs like a reversal pattern. All we just want to see is signs that buyers are negating that level to push price to the upside. And if we can notice this on a lower time frame, then we want to be joining a bullish momentum to the upside. So this area here is a very critical juncture we want to take note of and even mark these levels out on your chart. However, if price action drops below the $74 area, then at this point price would have broken that ascending trend line, which will happen to be the first time price will be breaking that trend line this week. And if this is going to be the case, then we are going to be getting ready to sell. Now remember, we are not going to be getting too excited, as we will need confirmations that sellers are gradually gaining momentum. Now what we want to see here is that buyers are finding it difficult to climb back above both the ascending trend line and the $74 area, and this would definitely reflect on the chart as either a retest of the 74 or the retest of the ascending trend line to give us an opportunity to join the bearish move to the downside. And in fact, take note that we have structures here that will help us to maximize the potential of this bearish move if price action drops further to the downside. So we have levels like the $73.60 level and the $73.20 area where we can capitalize on this bearish move if price action breaks down and retest this structure. So these are my views here on the US All Spot for today. So we want to be marking these levels out on our chart. And one thing here is that if price breaks down the $74.55 level and you are a counter trend trader or a scalper, you might as well want to take advantage of this opportunity. but I would advise you to wait for a retest of structure on your 1 minute, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes time frame before joining that move to the downside, which I think will dovetail to about 50 pips thereabout for you to catch, probably in anticipation of another wave of bullish momentum or a sell-off in this market if price breaks down that zone. So for if you are not a scalper, please stay out of selling below the $74.55 level, as our center of focus will be around here to determine what our next line of action will be. So these are my views here on the US All Spot for today. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Trust me, I am here and willing to be of help in that regard. So let's see if there are any questions. I will take about 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions, and you can as well use that time to mark out those levels on your chart, as you will need them as a reference point to guide trading activities during the New York session today. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I guess we'll move on to the next instrument. So I can see some comments. Let's run through this quickly. Norway 76, good afternoon to you. Nest 57, good afternoon. Thank you very much. Valeric, how are you doing today, Valeric? Trust you are doing well. Jack Racentis, how are you? 8603, good morning to you too. Ezab D. Abdullah. I always try to twist my tongues whenever I try to pronounce your name. How are you doing today? Trust you are doing very well. And 4048, you are highly welcome. Glad to have you around. So try to stay tuned in and you get to understand how this works. And eventually you'll be able to use the information you gather here to make your independent decisions on your own account. So stay tuned in and be patient enough to learn from what we are talking about here. So in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're on the same page here. So I will be moving on to the next instrument. All right, so the next instrument on our watch list for today is the USTech100, another profitable position we have here, despite a very volatile New York session yesterday, as we saw price action continue to climb and find new highs. Now, on this market, sellers have not been able to make any statement as regards to this current market structure. So let's talk about what really happened since the beginning of the week and how we got to the point we are in right now. Now, the first thing we observed at the beginning of the week was how price action was first of all caught within this small range between the $15,000 and $55 level and the $15,000 MAC area before it expanded into that 14,935 to give us a range to work with. And you know how we do it. Whenever we have a flat range like this, we either wait for a breakout or breakdown of the range to give us an opportunity to trade. Now, during the live session yesterday, we were around here. Where were we during the live session yesterday? Okay, so we were around here where we identified this range between the 15,995 level and the 15,055 area to give us a channel to work with. And I told us all yesterday that we are going to be waiting patiently for either a breakout or breakdown of that range to give us an opportunity to buy or sell. And considering the fact that price action remains bullish here, remember what we saw on the 4 hours time frame. We said if a breakdown of this range happens, we will need some further confirmation like continued selling pressure before we can join a bearish move, which never happened. Though some people might have taken some selling positions there, but one thing for sure that happened here was the breakout of the resistance line, which since then price action had continued to find higher highs in this particular market. Now, going into for those who are taking advantage of this opportunity, well done to you for being on standby to have caught that opportunity. And now that we're going into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans? How do we intend to manage our existing position? Are we still going to be seeing the buying opportunity today, or is price going to be dropping to the downside ahead of the CPI data? So now what we are going to be doing first of all is to scale up into the 4 hours time frame, where I want us to look at things from an holistic perspective. And this will also help those who are not part of the beginning of this week to have an idea of how we got to the structures we see on the 1 hour time frame. Now, the first thing we saw on the 4 hours time frame was the fact that price action has been bullish since the beginning of the year. But what we did here was to take into consideration the nature of price action since the mid-month of May. And when we did that correctly, we were able to identify an ascending trend line, which we said we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for the week. And one thing about our trend line is that, especially an ascending trend line like this, we always want to look out for patterns and structure if price action remains above the trend line to buy the asset. Now, if we zoom into the current structure, in addition to that trend line, remember we also identified a key level which has been a major determinant of price action since the beginning of this month, as you can see, the $15,000 mark. And one thing about this level is that at the beginning of this week, that level shared a beautiful confluence with that ascending trend line, and because of this, we said we will continue to look out for buying opportunity as long as price action remains above that level. And look at what has happened so far. Price action has moved from that key level to this present point, moving about 130 pips in that direction. So now that we are going into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans? Well, the first thing I would like us to do here on the 4 hours time frame is to acknowledge this level along the 15,150 area, which has been a good determinant of price action. So we shall be marking this level out on our chart. So we have 15,150 marked out on our chart right now. You can do that as well. And then let's bring back our candle chart. Now look at that level there. Look at what has been going on in this market since last week Friday. We saw the breakout happen. We saw multiple retests of that structure, buying pressure. Then we saw the breakdown, retest of structure here during the later part of last week's trading session. And throughout the course of this on Friday of last week, we can see how buyers struggle to break above the 15,150. Now this week price action has gradually got into that level, and in the last 4 to 6 hours now, price action has been ranging around that 15,150 level. And at this point, you would agree with me that we are at a critical point in the market, as anything could happen from this area. Now, what we are going to be doing now is to scale down into the lower time frame, as we want to see how the market participants are currently reacting to that 15,150, and whatever patterns or structure we can see from there on the lower time frame will guide us into what our next line of action will be. So now the question is, are we going to see selling pressure bring price into the trend line one more time, or even break down the trend line to the downside? Or are we going to be seeing a situation where the bullish momentum will continue at the breakout retest of the 15,150? So with this in mind, we shall be scaling down into the lower time frame, and let's scale down into the 1 hour time frame to see what is really going on around that zone. Now we are back on the 1 hour time frame, so I would just like us to zoom right into the current structure, as this is where our center of focus is going to be for today. So let me zoom in closely. Now we have been noticing something like higher lows here, but it appears that bullish traction is gradually reducing. As you can see, the bullish legs here are not as huge as the previous one, though we already have a little breakout of the 15,150, but it appears sellers are trying to negate all the attempt by the buyers to break out of that structure. So what we are going to be doing here is to first of all acknowledge the higher lows, which will give us a sense of direction of where price action has been going. Okay, hold on a second. Let me adjust this one. I don't like this extended right line, so I'm going to remove it, and then we have something like this. Okay, so this is the higher lows in the market since the early hours of today, and price action has consistently found higher lows. So let's do some readjustment to capture. Now we have something to work with. Now with the situation we have here, we have a trend line, and as long as price remains above that trend line, we shall feel comfortable in our buy position. And then we have the highest point for the week sitting along the 15,165 level, which is also going to be a major determinant of buying pressure in this market. So I want to label that one too. So we have the 15,165 level. Now I want to be adding more buy position to my existing trade if price action breaks out and retests the 15,165. That means price still remains above this newly identified ascending trend line. But if at any point in time price action breaks down the 15,150, which happens to be a very strong selling niche in the past, remember what I showed you on the higher time frame, then I want to start considering selling. So let me label this one here. We want to sell the breakdown retest of this structure. Now, if a breakdown of the 15,150 happens, then price action would have also broken down the ascending trend line, and this will be a sign that the trend line may no longer be able to hold on to the selling pressure anymore. And if that is going to be the case, then we will start thinking of selling the US All Spot. But remember, we are not jumping into conclusion at the point, as we're going to remain patient and wait for confirmations to happen, which would reflect on the chart as a retest of either the 15,150 or the trend line here to incite the opportunity of selling. Now, if we are going to be selling, where will our TP target area be? Now, if I zoom out of the structure so that we can see things from an holistic point of view, remember that we had a descending trend line identified at the beginning of the week on the 1 hour time frame here, and saw what happened yesterday. We saw the breakout of that descending trend line, and you all know from a technical standpoint that whenever price action breaks out of a key structure, just like what we have here, there is a tendency for price to come back, retest that level to incite a trend continuation to the upside. And interestingly enough, we have a coincidental situation as we have another ascending trend line sharing a confluence with this old pattern here. Now, with this information here, let's go back into the current structure. So with this information we have gathered from an holistic point of view, if a breakdown of the 15,150 happens today, then our TP target should be falling anywhere around those structures where we are seeing some confluence earlier, and that is going to be somewhere around the 15,095 level. We already have a level there which guided our bullish momentum. Now, depending on how price action reacts to this level will now determine if we are going to be adding more sell position to our existing trade or getting ready for another wave of bullish momentum where price action would be respecting that trend line one more time. So this is how we are going to be managing our trades on the USTech100. So our center of focus for today is simply between the 15,165 level and of course the 15,150 zone area. So let's see how price action will play out from this structure. Will it break it to the downside or will it break it to the upside? And this will determine where price action is likely going to be going for today. So these are my views here on the US Tech 100. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions before we move on to the next instrument. And you can as well take that time to mark these levels out on your charts. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're on the same page. So we shall be moving on to the next instrument on our watch list. So the next instrument on our watch list is the GBPUSD. The GBPUSD hit our TP target earlier this morning at the 1.29700 area, and in fact this is one of our most profitable trades for this week. As you can see here, we started buying the GBPUSD as soon as it broke out of this descending trend line at the beginning of the week, and you see how we were able to maximize the potential of this move as we had key structures like the 1.28420 level, the 1.285, and of course yesterday we saw this one here, the 1.28950, and of course the 1.29150. 5 good positions on this instrument to ride this momentum all the way into the 1.27900 area. In fact, it has been a very beautiful bullish move for us all in this community, and for those who took advantage of this opportunity, well done to you for being on standby to have caught that move. Now, for those who still have a buy position running here, I would advise you to move all stop losses right now, as the market might likely shift to the downside at this point in time. So now that we are going into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans and what do we expect will be happening along this structure? Well, before we talk about the expectations for today, I want us to scale up into the higher time frame. Let's look at things from an holistic point of view of what is going on in the market and how we intend to correlate the structures on the higher time frame with what we have on the lower time frame to make an informed decision ahead of the New York session. Now, scaling up into the 4 hours time frame, this is what we saw at the beginning of the week. Remember, we had a very beautiful ascending trend line. In fact, we had a couple of ascending trend line which emphasized the strength of the buyers in this particular market. But the most important level here is not the trend line, but the 1.285 level, which was a very strong selling niche since the mid-month of June. Now, if you look at the structure here, mid-month of June, we saw how sellers came in to negate all bullish attempts to break out of that structure. We saw the same thing here. Buyers struggled again, and not until at the later parts of last week we saw price come back into that area and leading into the final breakout of the structure this week. And you know, when price broke out of that structure, we were opportune to be part of that move as we rode it all the way to the upside. Now, with the breakout of the 1.285 level, a very strong key level there, which was serving as our yardstick for trading activity for the week, we all know from a technical standpoint that when price action breaks out of a key structure just like what we have here, there is a chance that price could come back and retest that level. And since price action tested our 1.297 where our TP target was, are we going to be seeing a retracement that will bring price, that is profit-taking activity, that will bring price back into the structure that was broken yesterday to incite another wave of bullish momentum? Or will this turn out to be a breakdown to incite a sell-off in this particular market? So now, with the sudden pressure we have been witnessing here in the last 7 to 8 hours now, we are going to be very patient to see how far this retracement phase will go, and if this turns out to be a profit-taking activities, definitely we want to look out for structures and patterns that will help us to join that move all the way into this area, where we shall look out for how price reacts to that level to determine what our next line of action will be. So with this information we have gathered here on the 1 hour time frame, let's scale back down, on the 4 hours time frame, let's scale back down to the 1 hour time frame to make an informed decision. Now, if you look at the 1 hour time frame closely, you would recall that we had an ascending trend line which we were using to guide our trading activity for this week. And look at it right here and notice how price action has remained above that ascending trend line. Not until this hour that price action is currently trading along the trend line. So you know how we use our ascending trend lines in this community. As long as price action remains above the ascending trend line, we want to feel comfortable in our buy position and of course look out for more opportunities to buy. Now, if you relate that expectation with this current structure, you will see that we are at a critical point in the market where price action is currently oscillating around that ascending trend line. Now, the question at this point in the market is, will this trend line hold again to push price to the upside, or will it be broken to the downside to incite a sell-off in this particular market? So we are at a critical conference here where anything could actually happen. So our center of focus for today is basically around this ascending trend line. Now, there are two scenarios we are going to be looking out for around this zone to decide what our next line of action will be. And one of this expectation here is a reversal pattern. So if we start seeing buy pressure, it might come in the form of a double bottom structure, head and shoulder pattern, or a falling wedge, whichever case it may be. Then we identify the neckline, breakout of it will confirm a trend continuation to the upside, after which we can have our buy stop order, another buy stop order above the 1.27900 level to maximize the potential of that bullish move. So this is what we are going to be looking at on this chart to buy the GBPUSD at this point in time. However, if price action breaches the trend line in such a way that it breaks down the trend line to the downside, then at this point we want to start considering selling. Now, for those who are already profitable on the GBPUSD, you could have your sell stop order right away and join that bearish move to the downside. But if you're taking this position for the first time, you know you don't have any leverage at all, as this will be your first move. So what you want to be doing is to remain patient. After the breakdown happens, scale down to your lower time frame and look out for confirmations that buyers are struggling to climb back above that trend line, and this would reflect on the chart as a retest of structure, continued selling pressure on our lower time frame to incite a sell-off in this particular market. And in fact, we have structures, we have levels here that we can use to maximize the potential of this bearish move to the downside. So if price breaks down, retest the structures, we are definitely going to be adding more position to our existing trade. So this is what we are going to be looking at this point in time to sell the GBPUSD. Well, personally for me, I already took an advantage here, leveraging on the profit I had made so far this week below the 1.29350 and currently running with about 15 pips in profit, move stop loss to break even at this point in time to see if price action will still continue to the downside. So let's see what happens here. Our center of focus still remains along this ascending trend line. Whatever happens here, if we notice double bottom structures, then we want to be getting ready to buy. But if a breakdown of that level happens, we want to be getting ready to sell. So it's very simple. If you have questions, feel free to let me know in the comment section. So these are my views here, and I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions, and you can as well use that time to mark these levels out on your chart, as you will definitely need them to guide your trading activities during the New York session today. All right, so in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're on the same page here. So we shall be moving on into the last instrument for today. And the last instrument on our watch list. And the last instrument on our watch list is the XAUUSD. Another very interesting setup we have here on the XAUUSD, giving us another wave of bullish momentum, which we took advantage of yesterday, hereby giving us a minimum of 250 pips in profit, as we had multiple entries across all this phase. Now, with the situation we have here, for those who are taking advantage of this opportunity, well, I'll first of all say well done to you guys for being on standby to have caught this move. And in fact, I have new structures here that I want us to be using to guide our trading activity for today. But before we go into the details of the structures here on the 1 hour time frame, let's run through the higher time frame and let's see what has really been going on in this market from an holistic standpoint. Now, at the beginning of the week, if you remember vividly, at the beginning of the week, we acknowledged our price action has found lower highs since the beginning of the month of June. And to further emphasize the strength of the sellers here, remember we connected a series of lower highs to give us this trend line. In fact, we have a couple of trend lines to guide our trading activities. However, something interesting happened in this market. Despite the lower highs noticed, we saw here that sellers were unable to find lower lows. Now, as soon as price got into the 1,900 level, we saw sharp rejection from the buyers, hereby negating all attempt by the sellers to break through that structure. And one interesting thing about the negation of the seller's attempt here is that this negation evolved into an ascending trend line. As we had higher lows as a result of this, we saw price action continue to climb higher lows here to give us a situation that looks more like a reversal pattern. Now, we went further to look at things from an holistic point of view, and we were able to spot a double bottom structure. So we had this situation, price was unable to break the previous low, giving us something like this. And you know how we do it whenever we start seeing the evolution of price action into a reversal pattern. The next thing we wanted to do is to identify a neckline which coincidentally shares a confluence with our key level for the week at the 1,930. And one of the things we said we are going to be doing during the beginning of the week is that a breakout of the structure will validate the potency of this reversal pattern, giving us an opportunity to buy. Though we were smart enough to maximize on that move by joining early enough even before the breakout of the structure happened. Now that we have a breakout of the structure, how well will price action continue to the upside from this juncture? Will it continue to the upside, or are we going to see a situation where price will drop back below the 1,930 to inside a bearish move to the downside? So these are the things we are going to be looking at when we scale down into the lower time frame. Now, before we scale down into the lower time frame, I want you to give me a moment to quickly run through a personal issue here, and I'll be back in a moment. Hello everyone. Sorry for keeping you guys waiting. I had to sort out some personal issues. It's raining very, very heavily in this part of the world, and I had to close my windows to ensure that I don't get my roofs, and I was flooded. So I'm sorry for that break in transmission. I'm right back into the business. So where were we? So we were talking about the potentials of price action to either remain above the 1,930, or it might likely drop to the downside. So we are looking at one or two things: price action remaining above this level or drop below the structure to incite a bearish move to the downside. And to have a better understanding into what is going on here, we shall scale down into the 1 hour time frame, where I was able to identify a simple setup that we are going to be using to guide our trading activity for today. Now, one of the parameters we are going to be using to guide our trading activity is this ascending trend line we identified at the beginning of the week. Now remember, after connecting the series of higher lows, we had a beautiful ascending trend line to work with. And you know how we use our ascending trend line in this community. As long as price action remains above the ascending trend line, we shall feel comfortable buying any asset. And now with the situation we have here, let me zoom right in so that we can see things clearly. Price action is currently trading around the ascending trend line. In fact, in the last 5 hours now, we have been witnessing a consolidation phase around that level to further emphasize the level of indecision in this particular point. Now, you would agree with me that we are at a critical point in the market where anything could actually happen. There are two things that could happen from here. If we continue to see buy pressure around this area, that means price would likely respect that bullish trend line one more time to incite another wave of bullish momentum. However, if price action drops below the trend line to the downside, then at this point we want to be considering selling the XAUUSD while we look forward to see how price action would react to our key level at the 1,930 to decide if we are going to be selling further or getting ready to buy if buy pressure resumes above the 1,930 level. So these are my views here on the XAUUSD. So our center of focus basically for today is simply around that trend line where price action has been trading in the last 5 hours. So let's see what happens around this area. If price drops below the trend line, remember, we are not getting too excited. We are going to wait for confirmations to happen, which would reflect on the chart as a retest of structure. Continued selling pressure below the structures will then give us the opportunity to sell. Excuse me. And I told us all here that if price drops into the 1,930 level, and what happens here will determine what to do. So if buy pressure resumes here, we get ready to buy. But if price breaks down, we get ready to sell the XAUUSD. So this is how we are going to be managing our trade here. Now, if price action continues to go to the upside and we see a breakout of the 1,941 level, then we want to definitely be adding more positions at a retest of that structure. So these are my views here on the XAUUSD for today. I hope I was able to break things down further for you to understand. But if you have any questions regarding what I just explained, feel free to let me know in the comment section, and trust me, how I'm willing and here to be of help in that regard. So I will be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to see if there are any questions before we draw the curtain for today. Yeah, I can see comments from 808. Good morning to you. Moff G, good morning to you. Genry, good morning to you. Jarl Slav, good morning. Glad to have you around. 00351, good morning to you too. All right. Oh, thank you very much, One Murphy J, for those compliments. We really do appreciate it from Xtrendspeed. Thank you very, very much. We love you too. All right. So, in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we're on the same page here, and it's on this note I will be drawing the curtain for today. It has been a wonderful 60 minutes with you guys. I'm really grateful to be alive to be with you, and I'm very confident that we are ready to take on the US market as it's open in the next 1 hour from now. So, ensure that you have your position secured, well secured. Move your stop losses accordingly. Secure your current position, as there is a high chance of volatility prior to the event and even after the event. So let's ensure we secure our positions, wait for our structures to mature before jumping into a position at this point in time. And I wish you best of luck in the New York session today. And for those who are joining us for the first time, I hope you are able to gain one or two things from what we discussed here today. And trust me, the more time you spend with us, you will be able to eventually use the information you gather here to make your independent decision on your account. So it's on this note I wish you all best of luck today, and I look forward to seeing you same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, as we come here again to review how well this instrument has been doing so far, and at the same time get ready for Thursday's trading session. Do have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye bye.